2022 NFL season is in the books. Kansas City Chiefs beat the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about it real quick. Then after that, we've got another guest coming in to join us. We're going to do a quick MLB preview. I'm going to throw some 5-word MLB teams at Bryce Odegard, and he's going to share some thoughts on some of the teams throughout the MLB as well. Should be a fun episode, so let's get into it. All right, the 2022 NFL season is now in the books after Super Bowl 57 took place last night, with the Kansas City Chiefs emerging victorious over the Philadelphia Eagles 38-35. Overall, my thoughts on the game, it was a very entertaining game. I think it was one of the better Super Bowls that we've seen, especially in recent years, considering that kind of the last two, especially, have kind of just been basically it came down to offensive lines in Kansas City in 2020 and then Cincinnati in 2021 just being outmatched by the defensive fronts of Tampa Bay and then Los Angeles. But this time around, these two teams, I said it going in, it seemed very obvious that this was the clear-cut two best teams in the NFL, and these two teams definitely showed up throughout the night. And yeah, overall, it was a very entertaining game. My biggest takeaway from this is I have to eat some crow on Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is incredible. Kansas City got some pressure on him. I thought they might get some pressure on him, but he stayed composed throughout this entire game. He had a very, very strong showing. I mean, 27 of 38 passing, 304 passing yards, a passing touchdown. Nothing to scoff at there. And then he breaks the Super Bowl rushing record by rushing 15 times for 70 yards and 3 touchdowns there as well. So he accounted for 4 touchdowns for the Eagles. This was a really good game from Jalen Hurts, and I think Eagles fans should be very excited about what they've got in this guy, especially considering that they were able to snag him right as Carson Wentz was going down, and they got him in the second round. It's not like they spent some exorbitant amount of draft capital like San Francisco did with Trey Lance in order to get this guy. He kind of just fell into the laps. They snagged him up, and he's turned into an MVP candidate. And it's been really an incredible story, and he continued to show it again last night. Obviously, there's that fumble that he had that Nick Bolton scooped up and scored a touchdown. Kind of the reason that Kansas City was still in that game going into halftime. If you look at it, it was 24-14 going into half. If they don't get that touchdown, they're looking at potentially a 17-point deficit, if not a little bit worse even. So yeah, that was definitely the one blemish on Hurts's game. I'm not even going to talk about that last second Hail Mary that he had that a lot of people are making fun of. I mean, 1, he's got a shoulder injury. 2, he doesn't have the strongest arm to begin with. I mean, the one thing that you could really knock with Jalen Hurts right now is his arm talent, or at least his arm strength. But and then 3, the ball, it kind of seemed like the ball was slipping out of his hand on that throw. It kind of felt like it kind of just wobbled out of his arm. So I'm not going to hold that against him by any means. But on the other side, for Philadelphia, man, that defense looked kind of fraudulent. Not going to lie. All playoffs long, all we heard was, they had 70 regular season sacks. They've got a dominant defensive front. They're going to put so much pressure on Patrick Mahomes. With his ankle, he's not going to be able to do anything against this defensive front. They had 0 sacks. Patrick Mahomes, he definitely was shaken up with his ankle, but he rushed for 44 yards. So clearly they weren't able to keep him contained too much. He only passed for 182 yards, but he also had 3 touchdown passes, and he didn't really have to do much there either because Isaiah Pacheco had the game of his life, rushing 15 times, 76 yards and a touchdown. Jerick McKinnon added another 34 rushing yards. I mean, this Chiefs team is just they showed all night long that offensive line it can match up with anybody, and they proved it once again. And for the second time in 4 years, they are the Super Bowl champs. But of course, one final thing, the refs had to get involved in this game. They had to make one stupid call down the stretch that ended up affecting the impact of or the outcome of this game. And they did it. That holding call, James Bradbury on Juju Smith-Schuster down by the goal line. He said it was a hold after the game. So I that honestly is going to make me a little bit less upset about the call, but it still did not look like a hold. And I kind of feel like he said, I feel like Bradbury said that just so he didn't have to take on a fine on top of the Super Bowl loss that he already was going through. So yeah, I didn't love that call. I didn't love that it basically ended the game and won it for the Chiefs. But at the end of the day, I do think that the Chiefs, they showed that they were the more resilient group and they had the more complete team. The second half, their defense really stepped up to holding the Eagles to just 11 points. So, yeah, give credit to them. Second time in 4 years, they're the Super Bowl champs. And now we look ahead to the offseason. Should be a wild one with Derek Carr. Apparently, he's just going to be released by the Raiders and go sign wherever he wants. So that's just another added wrinkle into what's already looking like a crazy offseason for quarterbacks. And yeah, it should be a very fun one with free agency draft coming up. So we'll talk about that a few more times as it comes in, but that's a wrap on the 2022 NFL season. Let's talk some baseball.
All right, joining me in the fryer now, another one of my very good friends. We got back-to-back weeks with great guests. My good friend Bryce Odegard, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me. How have you been?
I've been doing all right. Excited to talk some baseball. It's been a little bit since I've actually gotten into some baseball here, so
Yeah,
looking forward to talking with you about it.
yeah.
So the plan for tonight, or I guess this morning when this comes out, we've got all 30 teams. We've created 5-word MLB teams. We're just going to go down the list. And I'm a Brewers fan. Bryce is a Dodgers fan. So inevitably, we'll spend a lot of time talking about those two teams. But we're just going to basically talk about all 30 teams until we run out of stuff to talk about and just keep on moving on. But we're going to start in the American League, in the AL East. And I'll get us started. Went in alphabetical order. We got the Toronto Blue Jays up first. I went by mascot alphabetical order.
Okay.
So for the Blue Jays, my 5 words to describe the Blue Jays for 2023: will pitching match the hitting? Last year, they were top 3 in on-base percentage, slugging, OPS, 7th in homers. Jose Barrios struggled a little bit in the starting rotation. I think he's going to bounce back this year, but again, we'll have to wait and see. And I think they made a few very good moves in the offseason. What do you got for the Blue Jays, Bryce?
Yeah, so pitching is a big thing with them. I'm really excited about Manoa this year. And obviously, like, I'm sure some of those young sluggers are really going to break out. Bichette with that big, well, good extension he just got the other day. So I think their offense will be exciting this year too.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw one more thing at you. So I've got the over-under win totals for this year pulled up as well from BetMGM.
Okay.
And the Blue Jays right now are sitting at 92.5. You got an over or an under for me for the Blue Jays this season?
Under. I think they're right at 90.
I think you're right at 9. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think AL East, it's gonna be one of the tougher divisions in the league for sure, with the Yankees up there. Who knows what happens with Boston? But I think I'm gonna go slightly over because I think there's room for a couple 95 win teams in this division. Just because, one, with the schedule this year, it's less of a divisional focus. You're playing all 30 teams for the first time, so that'll be an interesting component to it as well. But I do think that their pitching gets a little bit better this season, and if their offense stays as good as it was last year, then this is going to be one of the better teams in the MLB. But yeah, that's the Blue Jays. Baltimore Orioles. I'm going to give you my 5 words for the Baltimore Orioles is the young guys need to carry. They've got a couple really good prospects. Adley Rutschman is probably going to be one of the best catchers in baseball this season. They got a couple nice young pieces in the rotation as well. What do you got on the Orioles?
Yeah, Rutschman will be interesting. A lot of people are super high on him, which obviously is a great young talent. My biggest thing with Baltimore too, kind of like you said, is like that rotation. It's young and it kind of scares me a little bit, especially in AL East.
Yeah, it's like we talked about with the Blue Jays. It's going to really come down to just how good that pitching actually turns out to be, because it could be really great. It could also be a year or two away from them actually being contenders. I was a little surprised by their over under for this year. It's 76.5. Do you got an over or an under for this one?
So this is such a tricky team because they were so streaky last year. They brought us
Yeah.
that wild ride. I kind of see them like the 21 to 22 Giants. I think they're going to maybe take a little step back. I'm going to say under on that as well.
Yeah, I think at some point somebody's going to lose some games this year in this division. And I think Baltimore, they went 83 and 79 last year. Kind of a surprising season from them from that standpoint. But I do think that they're a team that's going to be, they need a year of development before they truly get into that playoff contention. So I'm also going to take an under on the Orioles. Then headed down the line, we got the Tampa Bay Rays next. And I think 5 words for this team. Team needs to stay healthy. Wander Franco, Brandon Lowe, Tyler Glasnow all missed extended time last year. They still won 86 games despite all those injuries, so which is kind of incredible. And they have one of the best farm systems in baseball. They can get their health right. They could definitely be up there for one of the World Series contenders, in my opinion. What do you think about the Rays this year?
Yeah, I see them, kind of chasing the Blue Jays and the Yankees in that division a little bit. But like you said, with the health concerns, I still think they're going to kind of keep it together and definitely be that fringe wild card team.
Yeah, and then Rays, their over under right now is sitting at, I don't think they have the Rays listed here. They don't. What the hell? They don't have the Rays. All right, we're just gonna skip it then. We're just gonna skip it. It's not listed.
Okay.
Did you find it somewhere else?
No, everything I'm clicking on, they're like, "Are you in a bet friendly state?" Um, I was thinking, I think the Rays are going to be right around that 85 win mark, though.
Yeah,
That's where I had them.
I kind of think the same thing. Just again, the injuries with them. Wander Franco, when he's healthy, is a really great baseball player. Very fun to play with in MLB The Show. But again, it just really comes down to how healthy they'll be. And I still think that they've shown enough injury history that some of these guys are probably going to miss more time this year. And that's unfortunate, but it just is kind of the reality with the Rays. So I'm kind of with you. I think they still hover around that 85, 86. Maybe they get up to 90 if they really get lucky with injuries, but that's where I'm at with them too. Then the Red Sox up next. I'm really confused by what the Red Sox did this offseason, honestly. I think five words for them is strange offseason, ends in disappointment. Obviously, they get that extension with Devers, but then not keeping Bogarts there, and then they sign these weird contracts with aging relievers, Kenley Jansen, Chris Martin. It kind of feels like they're playing to be 500, but they're not really committed to being that World Series contender that they were a couple of years ago when Boston was just a juggernaut with that lineup that they had. It's 2018.
Mhm.
And then I'll hop it over to you first, and then I'll hit you with the over-under.
Sure. Yeah, I was kind of confused too. It almost feels like they don't know what to do either. That the AL East is so tough, and I know we've kind of touched on that a couple times. That you really have to buy in to really compete there or trust in what you've got going. Um, Justin Turner is so streaky, and he's so old and injury prone at this point. And then yeah, the two former Dodgers for me there, Chris Martin and Kenley Jansen.
Yeah, that's right.
You just don't know what to do. Like Chris Martin showed some bright spots last year, and that's under a coaching staff that can turn water to wine like Jesus did with pitchers. So, um, yeah, I don't know even what to expect from Boston. I think they're fourth or fifth in this division easy this year.
Yeah, I think we talked about it. We're going to get to them next, but the Yankees are probably the clear favorites to win this thing. And if you're not onto that, if you're not on that same level as they are, then there's not much of a point in even trying to compete. And Boston sort of looked like for a while they were going to try to compete, but then they just decided not to at the last minute again. They're over under 77.5. I think I'm easily going under on them. I don't think that they're much more than a 75 win team this season.
No, I think them and Baltimore will kind of duke it out to try to figure out who's going to take that last spot there.
Yeah. And then on to the last team. My 5 words for the Yankees are judge, jury, and juice balls. Because obviously last year the home run chase and everything was fun. And then they came out and said they had the juice balls going with Aaron Judge down the stretch of the season. I think we kind of called that as it was happening.
We were, talking about it there for a while because him and Pujols, it felt weird the whole back end of the season last year. Those two.
Yeah, it was every single day. It seemed like one of those two was hitting a home run. You probably could have made a lot of money if you bet on one of those two to hit a home run on a daily basis.
Probably.
So, yeah. But obviously they bring back Judge in free agency. It looked a little sketchy there for a minute, but they got him back. Bringing Carlos Rodon into that rotation, I think might make them the best starting pitching in the entire league, which is kind of scary when you consider that lineup as well. Obviously, loss of Chapman in the bullpen kind of hurts them as well, but I don't think that's nearly enough to keep them from winning this division this year. I think they're the easy favorites. Do you disagree, or do you have anything else to add to the Yankees?
You're right there. They're in my top 2 rotations. But yeah, that lineup is just so formidable. And yeah, I don't know, where this goes wrong. I have them I'll let you put the line out there and then I'll say what I have to say with that. But
yeah, so the line right now is 95.5. What do you got for that?
I have over on that. I have them about 98, I think.
Yeah, I think this could very easily be another 100 win team this season. If their starting pitching is as good as we think it's going to be, and this lineup that pretty much stays the same, that led the league in homers last year. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with Judge, but they got a lot of pop in that lineup, and they were among the best in slugging, OPS. Like this is going to be a crazy good team. Probably going to end up being the favorites to win the World Series this year. I'm going to go over on them as well. And that does it for the AL East. We're going to move into the AL Central now. We're going to start with the Guardians. And for the Guardians, I have them, my 5 words, running it back plus Bell. Added Josh Bell this offseason. Didn't lose a ton of major contributors, at least I didn't think so. And then they've still got, they're another team that's got a very good starting rotation too. So especially in a very weak AL Central that doesn't look a lot better than it was last season. It even looks worse in some areas. I think that this is probably a team that pretty clear-cut favorite to win this division as well. What do you got?
Yeah, they shocked me last year. Kind of coming out of nowhere, and then there was that Twitter beef between them and Chicago.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It was fun. I have Zach Plesac as like their 4th starter, which I didn't really realize how much I liked their rotation until I just kind of took a look at it now. But and that's such a week, you get to play the Tigers and Royals, like not as much as you used to get to. But even the Twins, I'm not all that high on. Depending on what Chicago does, I like this team.
Yeah, I think they definitely surprised me last season too, because they started out pretty slow, and the Twins and White Sox looked like they were kind of gonna be the ones duking it out for that division, and then Cleveland kind of just snuck in there and took it from them. They're over under right now, sitting at 87.5. In this division, I think I have to go over on that because I think this team wins at least 90. It's a good line. It's a
It
good
is.
line.
It is. Um, man, yeah, I want to say over, but I almost feel like it's not going to be, but I'm gonna go with over.
Okay.
Assuming everything goes well with them. I really like Andres Jimenez. I don't know why. I just love that guy.
Hell yeah. I can't blame you. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun team. It's gonna be a really weird division to follow again this year, I think. But
Mhm.
moving down, Kansas City Royals. This is kind of same sort of situation with the Toronto Blue Jays, but like their pitching is absolutely horrible. I have them listed as good offense derailed by pitching. They had a 4.70 ERA in 2022, which not good at all. They were second most walks allowed. They had the worst walks and hits per inning. They had the worst strikeout to walk ratio. This team gave up base runners all day long to absolutely everybody. And I don't think they improved nearly enough to be competitive this year. There might be they're probably looking at one of the bottom 5 teams in the MLB this year for sure. Anything to add?
I have nothing to add to that. This team does nothing for me. Yeah, there's just not much there.
Yeah. And their over under right now is 68.5. It's the sixth lowest at Bet MGM. I'm kind of surprised it's not lower. I think I'm going to go under on them. This is a low line, but I just don't think this is a very good team.
Yeah, that's a hard. I don't
Smart
know.
bet would probably be to take the over on this just
I was gonna.
because.
I think I'm gonna go over to be different from you because we've just been agreeing too much. But I don't know. Like it's such a that line is so out there that I don't know.
Yeah.
Take the over.
All right. Um, Detroit Tigers. I think this is a team they were weirdly one of the bigger movers in 2022 that last offseason, bringing Javi Baez. But after a really disappointing season, they kind of went silent. So my 5 words for them are allowed 22 offseason, goes quiet. I don't think they did much to get better this offseason. I kind of disappointed in that just because I feel like this division is very winnable for anybody, even if they just made some sort of move. But again, it's also Detroit and probably not a players going to want to go there either in free agency. What do you got for Detroit?
I can't think of anything they did. I haven't seen anything headline wise or I don't expect any change from what they did last year. I don't think they did anything to warrant anything. So um, I don't anticipate they do much.
Yeah, and they're listed right above the Royals right now at 69.5. I think they're better than the Royals are just because I don't think their pitching is as bad as Kansas City's is. So I think I'm gonna go over on that. What do you think?
Um, where do I have their staff? Yeah, I do have their rotation a little bit higher than Kansas City's. I don't know. I'm sure they're going to be right around that. You said it's at 68 and a half or
69.5. It's a very nice
69.
line.
Um, I'll go under. I
Yeah.
don't know. It could
Once you get
happen.
down here, it's like,
Right?
it could kind of go either way.
Well,
So
because by August they're not playing meaningful baseball, and they're
yeah,
just who knows.
who knows? On the Minnesota Twins, I have them as psych. Carlos Correa is back. Obviously, the Correa offseason saga is just one of the wildest things I've ever seen. Failed medicals with both the Giants and then with the Mets, or might have that flip flop, but
No,
and then he ends up going back to the Twins on a shorter term deal, 6 years. Um, Twins traded away Luis Arias, who led the league in batting average, but they do add Joey Gallo. Maybe he can bounce back a little bit this year after just getting booed off the field with the Yankees last season. And I think that I think they could make some noise in this division if Cleveland takes a step back, but right now I'd probably put them second fiddle to them just based off of what we saw last season with a lot of this with this roster. What do you think?
I think Correa there is fine for them. Um, their rotation is kind of middle of the road for me. Um, I don't see them kind of, keeping. I think Chicago is going to be better than them, and I do think Cleveland has a better shot than they do too. I just think Cleveland will build off of last year. I'd like to see Minnesota do something this year, but I don't know. I see them third in this division.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun team. That Byron Buxton is one of the more explosive outfielders in the entire league when he's healthy. Again, this whole division is kind of just going to come down to who stays healthy and who doesn't. Um, which fittingly brings us into actually we need to go over the over under again, huh? For the Minnesota Twins, they're listed at 82.5, right in the middle.
Oh.
I I think I'm gonna have to go over just because I think those bottom teams in the AL Central are gonna be so bad that they're just gonna get wins by default with that. So I'm gonna go over on that.
Yeah, so as you were going to look at that, I put the number in my head at 83. So I'm going to say over as well, technically.
Just barely. Okay.
Yeah, just barely.
And then speaking of injuries, probably the most injury riddled team in the entire league last season was the Chicago White Sox. Their 5 words are injuries, injuries, and more injuries. Yasmani Grandal, Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, Yari Garcia, Elvis Andrus all played less than 100 games last year. Jose Abreu and Johnny Cueto left, which kind of hurts them a little bit in my mind. I don't think that Andrew Benintendi, Mike Clevenger are probably going to be quite the replacements there that they need. And I do think that they just need absolutely everything to go right this season in order to make that happen. And that just doesn't seem to happen too much in Chicago nowadays. So I probably would put this team third if I had to make a decision right now. Do you disagree?
I do. I think they have a little edge on Minnesota. I don't know. It's more just gut feeling, but part of that is I love the Benintendi move. I do think that's going to help them. And but it's funny you said that about not much goes right in Chicago, especially on the South Side.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's I thought they were a good team last year. And I really thought they were going to run away with that division. Part of that was injuries, as we mentioned, but I think they're second in that division. It's all going to come down to if they stay healthy and, but yeah.
Yeah, I think losing Jose Abreu probably hurts them a lot more than a lot of other things that happened in this division this year. But I'm a little skeptical that they're going to be able to stay healthy throughout the season. Their over under is 84.5. I think I'm going to have to go under on this just because I feel like this is like right at 500, this team.
Okay, interesting. So out of principle, because I said that they're going to be second ahead of the Twins, I can't go under because that would tie them.
Yeah.
I'll say over on that 84. I guess I don't know by how much, but they might be right there at 84 or 85 there, I guess.
Moving on to the AL West. For the Angels, I think their biggest crime this offseason is the fact that they didn't commit to Shohei Ohtani. I don't really understand why they didn't do that. He's in my mind, he's a generational type of talent. Like there's nobody in baseball that has the sort of impact on a team that he does. And if they want to sort of maximize this duo of Ohtani and Trout, I don't know why they don't give him a contract now, because I mean, they definitely could have. And I just don't think that they did enough around those two guys to warrant being considered in a playoff position. What do you think?
Yeah. I don't think that organization sees any success with the current ownership. It starts there. He's not willing to spend. Geez, can you imagine if those two guys were in the other LA team?
Dude, like they would have won like 5 World Series in a row at this point or something like
Right.
that. Yeah.
And this team, year after year until the last couple, I've been like, this team is going to be good, but you just can't get excited about them because it says Angels on the front of their jersey. They just don't do enough for them.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that they've got 2 MVP caliber players and they might finish 500, and that's like optimistic for them.
Mhm.
It's just wild. They're over under. Um, apparently, BetMGM is on the same side as us. They have their over under set at 80.5. I'm gonna go under just because I just don't think that this team's very good around those two guys.
Yeah, this is a 76 win team for me. I say this is a pretty easy under.
Yeah, this is the one where I'm like, yeah, you're probably banking a little bit too much on Trout and Otani. And for that matter, like we don't know if Trout's gonna be able to stay healthy. That's been a big issue for him for the past 2 years too. So we'll see what happens there. But I think we're looking probably a sub 500 team in the Angels. For the Houston Astros, my 5 words are they finally won a World Series. I'm not counting the other one. I don't even want to
I
talk about it.
appreciate that. That
Yeah.
brings a tear to my eye. Thank you.
But this is still a really good team. Obviously, they're going to be. I think I'd put them, the Yankees, and then maybe the Blue Jays can sneak in there. Those would probably be my top 3 right now in terms of World Series contenders in the AL. But yeah, what do you think about them?
Yeah, I think the Astros they're going to be pushing for a 100 win season again this year. They don't do much wrong unless it
Anymore.
comes to, yeah.
Just keep the trash cans out of the dugout.
Right. They don't do much wrong as in terms of how they run their organization, bringing people in and developing players. They've always got a rookie of the year candidate. This team, yeah, they did not take any steps backwards. They're going to be good this year too.
And as a result, they're tied for the highest win total at 96.5. You said they're pushing 100. I think they're pushing 100. I think they finished with the best record in the league. I'm going to go over. It's a very high number, but I'm going over.
Yeah, I go over too.
Then moving into the Oakland Athletics. My 5 words. I said that the Royals or the Tigers would be down there in the basement of the AL, but I think my 5 words for the Athletics, they are the worst team in baseball. They ship out Sean Murphy, didn't really get anything great in return for him. At least that's going to impact them right now. And I just can't wait for this team to get out of Oakland because it's clear that they just don't want to be there anymore. That this ownership group doesn't do anything to compete. And even in an AL West, that like again, it's kind of like the AL Central. Like there's a good team at the top and the Astros, obviously, but there's room for them to be fighting for a wild card spot in this division. They could definitely, if they made a few moves, jostle positions, but they just don't do it.
Yeah, it kind of frustrates me seeing the talent that has come out of Oakland. They almost feel like Pittsburgh to me and Miami, where they just like develop players and then they leave.
Get out of there. Yeah.
It's so frustrating to see ownership not buy in. Yeah, I have them at 30 for my ranking for their pitching rotation. Their lineup does nothing for me, and they'll be a non-factor come June.
Now this might be the hardest over under of the day. They're sitting at 59.5. It's hard to imagine a team losing 103 games in a season, but I do think if anybody can lose more than 100 games, it might be this team. So I might go under on this just for the memes, honestly. Let's see the worst record in baseball.
Yeah. Okay. So last year they lost 102.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take the under with you there.
All right, let's ride the under, baby. All right. Then the Seattle Mariners. I got a prediction with this one.
Okay.
Julio Rodriguez will win MVP in the AL this year. I think he's budding superstar. I loved what I saw out of him last year. I think he's got all the tool. He's a 5-tool player in the MLB. Just he can do absolutely everything. And yeah, if the Mariners are going to make the playoffs this year, it's going to be because that he has an absolutely incredible season. I think that they I don't know how high in this division they have them, but I think that they're fighting for a wild card spot for sure.
Yeah, I have them right there too. I really like the front half of their rotation there, especially bolstered by Castillo and Robbie Ray. I think Ray's getting up there in age, um, but yeah, I like their rotation enough. And yeah, their young talent is it's fun. I think they're still building off of that um the letdown in the 2021 season where they just barely missed.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think they're fighting for a wild card spot here. The only issue is I mean, they have to play the Astros a few
right.
times, and I don't think the Rangers are going to be all that easy this year either. So,
Interesting you say that. We'll get to that in a minute.
sure.
But the over under for the Mariners this year, 88 and a half. This is very good. I think it's like right there with them. I think they definitely finished somewhere between 85 and 90. I think I'm going to have to go under on this just because of that principle that I just don't get enough room with that over for it to make enough sense for me. So I'm going to go under with this just barely.
Okay, I thought you were going to take the over there. But I'll take the under with you as well. I think
Dang.
about 85, 86 there. Um, but I do think, they're fighting for that second or third spot in the division. For sure, third. Oh,
Yeah,
easy
easily
third,
third.
but fighting for that second spot.
Yeah. And now seems like this might be our favorite team in the AL this year because I have the Rangers listed as dark horse of the American League. Because I think that DeGrom, Evaldi, Heaney, they definitely need to stay healthy this year. But if those three guys are healthy, this is a very scary team. They combined for 246 innings pitched in 2022. Hopefully that they get a little bit more than that, obviously, this season. But if those three guys are at the top of your rotation and they're at the top of their game, that's at least two wins every single week from those three guys. So and they didn't really lose anything of note from their lineup. They do need to be a little bit more consistent in offense. They ranked 19th in OPS last year. I think this lineup has a lot more potential than just being middle of the pack like that. And I think that this is a team that a lot of people are sleeping on. First off, ESPN's win projection has them at 79 and a half right now, which feels very low. They won 74 last year, and they added all these guys to the rotation. And their over under is 82 and a half. I'm hammering that over. I'm just getting that out of the way right now. I'll toss it over to you now.
Yeah, I can't even toy with the under on that. I think they're at least right there with Seattle. I have them a little bit ahead, I do think. Um, but yeah, the additions to the rotation, if Jacob DeGrom can stay healthy, that's one of the best pitchers there. And then they're still building off of the Simeon and Seager acquisitions
Right.
from the previous year. So I really like this team. And I'd like to see Corey Seager come back to being, what I know he can be. So
Right.
yeah, I like this team. They're over that. What'd you say, 82 and a half?
82 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just feels very low. Yeah. Well, that's the AL. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll get into the NL. I think that will be a little bit more controversial between the two. All right. We're back. AL's in the books. Now we're talking the National League. Again, we're going to hop over to the NL East. One of the more wild divisions in baseball last year for sure. I'm going to hit you with the Braves first. My 5 words for the Braves: can newcomers replace big names? Kenley Jansen gone from the bullpen. William Contreras is a Brewer now. Dansby Swanson is a Cub. Adam Duvall goes to the Red Sox. Sean Murphy is the replacement at catcher. And I think the biggest thing for them, they need Spencer Strider to step up as a pitcher this year for them. I think that they've got all the makings of a playoff team if these things work out, but it's going to be tough to replace some of these big names. They're going to need somebody that we're not expecting to step up and make a big impact for them this year. What do you think about the Braves this season?
Yeah, I'm down here deep in the heart of Braves country.
Yeah.
And there's not much excitement around it right now. It is still football season, but the Braves, they're another one of those teams. They don't do much wrong. They develop young talent like it's making their bed in the morning. And I do like their rotation. You mentioned Strider. I think he does take a step forward. I really liked him last year. I still have this team. It's going to be tough with New York and Philly in there. They're probably looking at third place in the division, but I think this division's one of those that can have a couple different playoff teams. So I think they're fighting there for a spot, but they're not the same as they were the last couple of years.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by this line. Right now, they have they're tied for the third highest at 95.5. I'm taking the under on that. I just think this division's too tough.
I can't go over on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see what they have New York at, because I don't know where you put other wins in that if you have Atlanta at 95.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's the same, 95.5.
Oh, well, then I don't know where you put Philly at.
Yeah, it's we're just talking about this whole division as a whole right now, which is totally fine. But this is going to be a crazy division to follow all season long. I think there's going to be so much jostling for position. Any one of those three teams that we mentioned could probably win or could probably represent the NL in the World Series this year if things go right. But yeah, I'm going under on the Braves. I'm not nearly as high on them just because I just don't know what to expect from some of these new guys. The Miami Marlins, I think they are the inverse of the Toronto Blue Jays. They have some really good pitching. Obviously, Alcantara last year won the Cy Young, but I just don't think they have any hitting to keep up with the pitching. Like, you can have good pitching all you want. If you can't put runs on the board, like, you're not going to win too many games. They added Gene Segura, which is fine, but if that's your main addition for the offseason, I'm not going to be super high on you as a team going into the season, especially in a division like the NL East, where all these teams have they have crazy lineups, if nothing else. So I think that this might be one of the I'm not going to put them on the same level as like the Nationals, but I think that this team is pretty solid fourth place in this division.
Yeah. I don't think there's anywhere else for them to go. Their pitching's fine, but you nailed it. Like, you have to score runs. And the teams that they'll play, they will score runs.
Right.
And yeah, I just don't see their I don't see their lineup doing anything. This is a fourth place team who can beat up on the fifth place team.
Yeah, last season they finished third worst in runs. They had the seventh fewest home runs of the season, and then they just weren't a very good lineup. One of the worst in slugging percentage. Fourth worst OPS, just not a very good offensive team. And if Gene Segura is your main addition to this team, like, it's not going to be very good. They're 74.5. I think I see them closer to 70 than I do 75 this year. Just because, again, the division's a beast. And if you can't score runs, you're not going to be able to keep up. So I think I'm going to go slight under on this one.
Yeah, I'm taking the under too. You stole the words right out of my mouth. You don't get any wins in this division, so they're not gonna. They won't baseball.
Nationals. My 5 words are how the mighty have fallen from the World Series in 2019 to easily the worst team in this division, probably bottom 5 in the entire MLB. Traded Juan Soto and Josh Bell last year, and now they just look like a team that doesn't have Juan Soto and Josh Bell anymore, two of the better hitters in the entire league. And I guess we'll just have to see if this rebuild thing works out again for them, but it's going to be very interesting. I don't see them doing too much this year.
Yeah. I don't know where their offensive production comes from, and their rotation is not there either. I think it's going to be a long year for Nationals fans, especially having to play Harper and Turner together multiple times a year. Like,
yeah,
it's just got to be a knife in the heart to watch those two in pinstripes.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're so right. That sucks so bad for them. Um, right now they have the second lowest over under total at 60.5. I don't think they're quite that bad. I think I might go a little bit over on that just because I don't think they're quite 100-loss team anymore or still, but what do you got?
I'll give them 100 losses.
You'll give them 100? Okay.
I don't see them winning many baseball games. I don't know where it comes.
Yeah, I think that again, this is like just the line is like I feel like they lose a little bit closer to 95 than 100, but 95 to 100 losses
Right,
is still
like,
going to be one of the worst teams in baseball. But yeah,
yeah. Just sorry. Go.
no, you're good. Moving to the Phillies. My 5 words are: will Philly Lightning strike twice? They're coming off that miracle World Series run where they kind of just came out of nowhere in September and October. Bryce Harper, obviously probably going to miss the first half of the season for them, which puts a little bit of a dent in where they might end up in the standings at the end of the year. But by the end of the year, they're probably looking at one of those better teams in baseball. Trey Turner wins wherever he goes, so that's definitely a huge addition for them. And I think they're probably going to hover around that 90 win range. Again, maybe a little bit lower than the Mets, but I think they're a pretty solid team, especially when Harper comes back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Funny that you mentioned Lightning with the Phillies because that's exactly what they got with Trey Turner there.
Yeah.
I cried the day he signed. I was waiting to buy a jersey, but I was going to buy a jersey of his if we got him back. I really like this Phillies team. They have 2 of my favorite players in baseball with Harper and Turner. It'll be interesting to see what they do without Harper for a while. But Trey Turner is so consistent. You start taking him for granted, and he just gets on base and makes the guys around him better. I like this team. I have them sitting about 92, I think. So
okay. And the over under for them is 88.5 right now. I get it because Harper is going to be out. I think I'm going to go a little bit over that though. I think especially when he comes back, this is going to be a crazy offense, and they've got some decent pitching too. So this is going to be they're definitely going to make the playoffs. So I'm going to go over.
Yeah, like I just mentioned, I am also taking that over. Yeah, I liked that addition of Taijuan Walker too. I think that bolsters their rotation a little bit with Nola, Wheeler, and Suarez. I like those 4. I like that team.
Yeah, if they were in the AL for sure, I'd definitely be rooting for them, but can't really root for them when they're in the National League. So moving to the NL Central, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here about my Milwaukee Brewers. My 5 words for them are: cheapskate owner loves my pain, because I feel this team is constantly in a position where they could make a big addition and go make a World Series run. Like there's some good teams at the top of the NL, but I don't think it's nearly as deep as it was, especially a couple of years ago. And obviously the trade for William Contreras is great. I think he's going to be probably one of the better hitting catchers that Milwaukee's ever had. I'm not super sold about Jesse Winker on the squad though, because he was good in 2021. He had a 394 on base, 556 slugging, 24 homers. But then last year those numbers plummeted for him. And this is already a team in the Brewers that rely way too much on guys just having streaky home run hitting stretches. And if they're not hitting home runs, they're not going to have any sort of offense. And the bullpen I didn't like that they didn't make any real additions to that bullpen either this year, losing Taylor Rogers. And obviously last year trading Hader away. I kind of get it because they got a few nice pieces in return, but I don't think that this pitching staff is nearly as good. And they didn't freaking extend Corbin Burns either. And that pisses me off more than anything else. I do think there's a few prospects, Garrett Mitchell, Sal Frelick in particular, that could make an impact on the stretch of the season if they don't make the opening day roster. But what do you think, Bryce? Are you thinking the same thing as me in Doomsday Brewerland over here? Or you think they're a little bit better than what I'm saying?
You are such a pessimist. I like.
I have to be, because this is the freaking Milwaukee Brewers, dude.
I know. And I'll tell you what I really like. I have their rotation at third in baseball. I like your pitching rotation. Yes, Jesse Winker, like, I didn't even really bat an eye at that trade because I loved him in Cincinnati and he just was like nothing in Seattle, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know that does much for you guys. I do really like the Contreras acquisition, though. He's young, and I think, he's got room to develop too, and he's got the Contreras last name. You guys will be good. You'll be fine.
All right. Well, the only thing I'll add is they had one of the better rotations in baseball last year too, and we saw how that worked out. And it's I don't know. I just need Mark Adenazio to sell this team, man. I'm so sick of him. Get him out of Milwaukee.
Well, and if Yelich could turn around a bit too, retain for him a little bit, that would help.
Him, Keston Hero, we could use a lot of guys to turn around, but that's neither here nor there. They're sitting at 85.5. I'm going under. I don't believe in this team at all. I think that they might jump out to a hot stretch early in the season just because that's what they always do. But down the stretch, I don't trust them. I'm going to go a little bit under.
I'm going to take, I think, half a win over that. I have them right at 86.
That's where they won last year. So
okay. And I do think they're a pretty consistent team. I feel like they're usually right in there, are they not?
They led the division for like the first 80 games, and then St. Louis Cardinal devil magic happens.
Yeah. No, I'm going to take you guys for the over because I think you got a couple cakewalk teams there in the division, so you get a few ones there.
I hope you're right. But speaking of devil magic, the Cardinals, I have them. Maybe this is the end of devil magic because there's no more Yadier Molina. Albert Pujols is not going to have any more juice balls to hit because he's gone too. And Wainwright signed a 1-year deal. I'm thinking maybe this is his last year, considering it's 19th season. Took a bit of a step back last year. Goldschmidt getting a little bit older. Arenado getting a little bit older. They're still very good, but maybe they start taking a step back. Am I being a little bit too pessimistic on the Cardinals? What do you think?
Yeah, I do still think St. Louis wins this division. But I'm not all that high on their rotation, but I think with Goldschmidt and Arenado, like the fact that a Cardinal won MVP last year and it wasn't Nolan Arenado, they have some players, and now they've got Contreras as well, which I have a note here that says Contreras in St. Louis feels wrong. It's
disgusting.
Weird.
I hate it.
I'm sure it just grinds your gears. Could have finally seen him out of the division, but nope, there he is.
Nope. And he's basically just young Yadier Molina too, which is just stupid. Right. I hate it, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I hate the Cardinals, but I like this team still. I don't think they're in the NL East. I don't think they're all that good, but I still think they're fine. They're going to win this division.
Yeah, I think the same. Their line is 89.5. Just for the fact that it's the NL Central, I think I'm going to go over on this because one of these teams is probably going to have to win 90 games to win it, and Cardinals are the favorite to win it, so I'm going to go over.
I'm going to go under. I think it's a I think it's going to be kind of tight there with those top three. I don't know if that's a surprise. I'm going to sneak Chicago kind of in there. I like them a little bit. So I think it's going to be a little close with those three. I don't know where this falls in or if this even makes sense, but I'll take the under here. I think it's going to be close.
All right. It's funny you mentioned the Cubs as one of your teams that you like in the National League because, like the Rangers, I have them as the dark horse of the National League. Let me take you through it. I think this team's getting way too much hate, as much as that pains me to say. ESPN has them as a 23rd ranked team in their win projection at 73.2. Their over under, I'll give it to you right now, is 77.5. They won 74 last year. And this offseason, they made additions of Dansby Swanson, Cody Bellinger to the lineup, Brad Boxberger in the bullpen, Smiley Taillon in the rotation, and they're playing in the NL Central. I don't get how this team wins less than 80 games this year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think they come in just behind your Brewers, but dude, the Swanson thing is huge. He's a great player. I wanted the Dodgers to grab him. And then I've always had faith in Cody Bellinger. It's kicked me in the ass sometimes, but I like the Cubs. The only thing I don't like is their pitching, but I think their lineup will do enough. I think they'll kind of sneak in there a little bit. It's not going to be loud, but I think they'll be there.
Yeah, on the Bellinger point, like I think a left-handed hitter hitting at Wrigley Field in August with that wind blowing out, I think that there's a chance that if he might not get that on base percentage up to where it used to be when he was in the MVP contention, but if he can go hit like 25 homers this year at Wrigley, I think he's definitely got what it takes to bounce back. Although I've been saying the same thing that you've been saying about Bellinger, I've been saying that about Christian Yelich. So who knows what happens there? Those two guys are just, I don't understand it. It's so weird. But yeah, I sadly think the Cubs might be very good this year. And I kind of think that they might sneak in there and steal this division even. So I'm definitely going to go over on them with the win total.
Yeah, I think a lot of things would have to go their way for that to happen, for them to win that division. Because I think the Brewers and the Cardinals stand in their way. But I'm definitely taking the over. I see them right around 80.
Yeah.
And I like that team. I don't like the Cubs. I'm high on that team.
I like their roster construction. I don't like the Cubs at all. I hate the Cubs. But Pittsburgh Pirates and Cincinnati Reds, I don't have a ton to say about either one of these teams. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, I just have them as Andrew McCutchen retirement party. I think he signed the 1-year deal with them. It's just the coming home story. It's a feel-good story for Pittsburgh this year. Maybe he goes and hits a few homers for them. But I don't see this team doing anything in terms of contending in the National League. I think the three teams that we already talked about are clearly above them. But yeah, anything to add about the Pirates?
Nope. They didn't. I think they added G-Man Choi this year.
That was about the extent of it.
I don't know what that does for anybody, but yeah, there's not much to this team.
Yeah, they're sitting at 66.5. I think I'm going to go under because this looks like another one of those 100-loss teams for this league.
I'm gonna go a little bit over.
Oh, okay.
I don't think they're nearly as bad as the Reds.
Yeah.
I really don't know what that team has going, but yeah, I'll go over just a little bit.
Speaking of the Reds, did you know that last year in their 140th season in Major League Baseball was their first 100-loss season?
Interesting.
Yeah. There's been, I think, 37 teams since 2000 that have lost 100 games, and the Reds finally did it for the first time in 140 years. So,
well, congrats.
Yeah, congrats to Cincinnati. Good work over there, folks. But the only real thing that I have for them is I think another 100-loss season is loading. I think that they're going to go back to back.
Run it back,
Run it back, baby. Go get that number 1 overall pick, because
Yeah.
I think that this is one of those teams that's going to be probably contending with the Athletics, honestly, for that worst spot in baseball.
Yeah. I don't I don't see anything here. It's gonna be about draft stock.
Yeah, it's gonna be about draft stock, and it just makes my heart happy to see Joey Votto's last few years in Cincinnati being painful, because that guy's killed me too many times. But that's enough talk about the NL Central. Let's move over to your division, Bryce.
You have to.
We do, actually. We have to. Starting with the Diamondbacks, I think they made a great trade to acquire Gurriel. I think they're a year or two away in terms of being like true playoff contenders. I do that they've got a few nice pieces going for them. The NL West, though, is just too tough at the top between the Dodgers, Giants, Padres for me to consider them quite there. I don't think they're going to be a bad team necessarily. I think their record is going to be a little bit more harsh than this team actually is. Like, if they were playing in like the NL Central, the AL Central, they might be a wild card team because just playing those other teams. But I think they're a year or two away in this division. What do you think?
Yeah. Some of the stuff they do, I kind of have feelings like with Boston, how they're not, I don't know if they're really buying in, but I can imagine it would be hard to buy in to really try to go for it in a division like that. I don't think they're there yet. Their rotation's okay. Oh, which one was it? Merrill Kelly or Zach Gallen last year that went on that crazy run? Um, anyhow, so I think their rotation's okay, but they do have to play the Dodgers and the Padres.
Right.
Yeah, there's just not room for them at the top. They lose too many games, and I think you're right. Their record will be harsh, but they're not there yet.
Yeah, their over under right now is 75.5. This is a tough one because, again, I think this roster is fine, but taking into account that they're playing in the West, I think this might be a slight under for me. I don't think they quite lose 90, but I also don't think that they win 80. So
yeah, no, I'll take the under two just because, especially the way that California has moved into Phoenix.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Chase Field is Dodger Stadium South. They can't win a game at home. Yeah, I don't see them winning many games.
Yeah, unfortunate. But now we get to talk about your team, the Dodgers. I I think this is the first time in a while that we can say that they didn't have a terrific offseason, honestly. I mean, the JD Martinez move is awesome, but that's about the only thing that they did. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of feel like there's something else loading. Not this year. Certainly not. There's nothing else to happen this year. I don't doubt that they're going to make a run for Otani next year.
Yeah,
But
unfortunately.
we're not talking about next year. This year, I think they're kind of banking on Vargas, Miguel Vargas coming out a little bit. He's going to replace JT at third base, which he's got tons of upside. He struggled a little bit last year. James Outman is stepping into Bellinger's shoes, which you can't get much worse than what Cody Bellinger has been. So
Yeah.
if he can break out a little bit, I think those two will bring up the rear of that lineup. And as disappointed as I was in this offseason, I mean, Friedman has just had my hopes up for every year because that's what he does. He's just good at his job. You still have Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman at the front end of your lineup. And then Will Smith is one of the best catchers in baseball, one of the best hitting catchers for sure. And the Dodgers are going to Dodger, I think. I don't see them winning this division. But I think that, they're for sure a playoff team.
Yeah. I think this is one of those few lineups in the league where you can look 1 to 9. They've got a guy that scares you at every single spot. And that's That's terrifying to think about as a team that's supposed to be contending in the National League too with the Brewers. But BetMGM has them tied with the Astros for the best win total in the league at 96.5. What do you think?
Under. I think
Under?
yeah, I'm gonna say 93-ish. Yeah.
I I think kind of like me with the Brewers, you're kind of underselling a team a little bit. I think this is still one of the scariest teams in baseball. So I'm going to go over. I think this is another 100-win team.
Uh, yeah. Well, I could make a lot more points, but we don't have to stick here. We're
no,
good.
let's do it. Yeah,
Well, okay.
This is your team. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so I do have Vargas as rookie of the year. I think that's
Okay.
an optimistic fanboy kind of thing. But I think he's going to come out and just be solid. Also, I think a lot of people are overlooking the Syndergaard signing
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
because, I mean, you look at Tyler Anderson and Andrew Heaney last year, those are not guys that are factor players, you know. And Anderson was an all-star. He could have started the all-star game. Like,
Yeah.
and then you have Tony Gonsolin, whose workload is probably higher than it needs to be. You're missing Bueller this year, though, which stings. Dustin May, he's a big question mark. Maybe I'm a little too pessimistic, but I think there's some bright spots here. If Thor comes back with vengeance, that's a crazy rotation. So yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Final word on the Dodgers is we'll see. Moving to the Giants now. I think my 5 words for them would be they're the bridesmaid, but never the bride. They missed out on Aaron Judge. They missed out on Carlos Correa. Still really weird how those two things went down with them. But they did still maintain a good number of their contributors from last year, including Jock Peterson, hit 23 homers last year, 874 OPS. Kind of a quiet season, but still one of the better hitters in baseball for sure. And Mitch Haniger should be a really good boost for them if he stays healthy. He only played 57 games last season, but when he's healthy, he's definitely a scary addition to a lineup. And I think that this could be a team that contends for a wild card spot. I don't think that they're going to win this division, but I think that they could sneak into the playoffs at some point.
Okay. As sad of an offseason as it was for me as a Dodger fan, as a Giant hater, this was my favorite offseason of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than your rivals losing 2 of the biggest names in baseball without ever actually having them. I'm not as high on them as you are. I think they're very solidly in 3rd place here. Their 2021 season was the most frustrating one for me in recent memory because that team was not reflective of how many wins they had. Yeah, I think they missed the playoffs, and I don't know that it's all that close.
All right. Well, I think BetMGM would tend to agree with you because they have them listed at 80.5 wins. I'm going to go over. What do you think?
I'm going to go under. I think they're under 500 this year.
Okay. I think that there's room for 3 of these teams to go over 500, so that's why I'm going over with it. But again, like I kind of said, this is a weird offseason for the Giants for sure. But moving into the final 2 teams, we got the San Diego Padres next. And my question for them is, what does Tatis give them? Because right now they've got a pretty damn good team with what they've got already. But is Fernando Tatis going to be another big contributor for them when he comes back from the suspension? I think he's supposed to come back like late April or something like that, somewhere around there. And we just haven't really seen much of him especially over last season. He didn't play at all, and he's missed some time down the stretch of the 2020 season or 2021 season as well. So that's really my big question mark. If they get him back and comes back as that same type of dude who's in the MVP conversation, I think that's a missing piece to this team finally going on that World Series run. But until then, I just don't know what to expect from them. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think them adding Bogarts was a huge um, statement towards Tatis.
Yeah.
There's the, kind of the sly remarks about Tatis from their GM. Um, he needs to wake up. He's a good ball player. As a Dodgers fan, he's annoying as hell. But it'll be interesting if he can, if he's there and you got Soto, Bogarts, Machado. It's crazy that Machado, he was an MVP candidate last year.
It's like the
And
third best player in this lineup.
right, like yeah, you there's there's a lot of pop there. There's a lot of superstar power. Um, it's funny that they do all of this just to try to catch the Dodgers, but um,
Talk your shit.
yeah, um, I don't like their rotation. They have the names, but Blake Snell's not what he used to be. Yu Darvish is fine. They lost Clevenger. He went to Chicago, if I'm
Right.
not mistaken, which he struggled last year, I think. Um, all that being said, that lineup is just too crazy. Um, I think they're my NL favorites this year, and they win this division.
All right. Well, their over under is listed at 93 and a half. I'm I think I'm gonna go over with it too, just because I think that star power is just too crazy. And I think the Dodgers and the Padres are gonna be two of the premier teams in the league fighting for a World Series spot. So I'm gonna go maybe not quite 100 with them, but pretty damn close to 100.
Yeah, um, I think the NL West has a 100-win team there, and I've kind of acknowledged that I don't think it's the Dodgers. I'll say the Padres, push it. It'll take some stuff to go right. This isn't a sure thing. Like, I'm pretty sure the Astros are going to win 100, but I'm definitely taking the over on that, and I think this is a crazy team.
All right. And then the final team probably is one of the more underwhelming teams in the league to close things off with, but that's all right. Colorado Rockies. I have them as we have Brewers at home because me as a Brewers fan, I get annoyed with my team not making any moves. This team, they signed Chris Bryant, who is that's okay, but that's it. Did nothing after
Yeah.
that. And they might get to 70 wins this year. They've got a few nice pieces, but I just don't think that they're going to do it, especially with this ownership group.
Yeah, it comes down to the ownership. I don't know if this was a real quote or if this was some troll on Twitter that I saw.
I saw
But
this too.
the quote about I think this team can go 500.
Great optimism right there.
That's what we're shooting for. Hey, but that's better than Oakland. I don't think Oakland's even going for that. So
Well, I mean, even in that vein though, like why would you want your goal to be to go 500? Like
right.
that does absolutely nothing for you. Like at least the Athletics are going to be able to find some sort of nice pieces in the draft.
Mhm.
Colorado's just kind of stuck in the middle where that's the worst of both worlds. They're not going to make the playoffs, and they're probably not going to be one of the teams looking at like a top five or maybe even a top 10 draft pick at this point.
Yeah. I mean, you think about this team, they fell hard. Um,
Yeah.
with the Arenado and Story duo they had, they almost won the NL West a couple of years ago. It came down, that was in 2018, came
Mm-hmm.
down to the one game playoff, and now I kind of forget that they exist.
Yeah.
Like
I do forget they exist.
it's such a boring team. You forget about it until you have to go play in Coors Field, and then you remember the curse that is Coors Field. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't. The Rockies don't do much for me until Clayton Kershaw has to go pitch there, and his numbers look terrible. But
That's how it is for every pitcher that goes in there,
yeah,
though. But yeah, that's the MLB. That's exactly how the MLB season is going to go this year. I firmly
but
confident that we got it exactly right. Last over under though for the Rockies, close things out 67 and a half. I said they might get to 70, so I'm going to go a little bit over on them just to get them to that 70. But I don't think this is a huge over by any means.
They don't get 70, but they are over that. I think they're, right there at 68, 69 maybe. So
very nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the MLB. Thank you very much, Bryce.
Yeah,
this is a lot of fun.
This was tons of fun.
Yeah, maybe when the All-Star game gets around, we're gonna have to hop back on here and make some teams. What do you say?
Yeah, I would dig that. That would be super fun.
Awesome. Well, this has been Josh Fry, Bryce Odegard. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
All right, and that is a wrap of episode 2 of Into the Fryer. It was a good time. I thought I had fun, so hopefully you guys did too. Do the usual stuff, like, subscribe, follow, whatever platform you're using, do all the stuffs. And yeah, haven't exactly figured out what we're going to talk about for next week, but there's plenty of stuff going on. It is February, but maybe we'll hop into a little bit of hoops talk again. Didn't really get to do much with the NBA trade deadline, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll talk at you again next Monday.